Okay.
I must say something here. While in service, I wasn't privy to the
Procurement.
process of procuring, weapons for Nigeria. But I think that process is not transparent. Very few people can really sit down and tell you this is exactly what happens. It should be made more open. People should know. We are not saying tell us what you are buying. We are not saying tell us the arsenal you want to build up. But at least people should be able to know that if this ought to happen, this process should be followed. That way, it will be less open to the suspected abuse we are thinking of seeing right now.
And also, one of the reasons why Nigerians are raising an eyebrow over this is because every country has a law governing how you move money into their country.
Exactly.
For South Africa,
Exactly.
a certain number of dollars, about just over 2,000, thereabouts, if it's beyond that amount, it becomes a problem. What South Africa is doing now, is it against the law? Are they actually trying to stifle our efforts of securing arms?
I don't think so. I tell you something. There are two issues involved. Moving money across international borders and then arms itself. You see, arms proliferation has become an issue within the West African sub-region. Weapons are moving freely. So anybody who is actually seeing so much money coming in an unwholesome way into his country for the purchase of arms will be interested, because if we don't curtail these things, if we don't streamline these things, if we don't control these things, then you're going to have pockets of armed people coming up to surprise you. So if we were actually going to buy arms at the national level, I think there are more wholesome ways to have done it, no matter how pressed or desperate we are.
Okay, with all of the things that's being said, Dr. Mayao, I can see you've been sitting down and wondering, okay, with all of this that's being said, what is your thought about the fact that we are where we are and there is limit? And one of the guests that we had on Sunrise during the course of this week was saying that the leaders, the people at the helm of affairs, and I guess they're referring to Mr. President, has had so many opportunities, Independence Day and a number of other events, that he's made statements, but he's not referred to this issue even once. What's your thought?
Yeah, first I would like us to look at the issue holistically, because I think the problem we've had is a good number of persons seems to politicize the entire thing. I'm forgetting the fact that this is something that borders on national security. I agree with what the captain said, that the process was not transparent, but I do know that in every country, it depends on the circumstances in which you find yourself. That determines, the level of transparency you can have in a particular process. Again, the only aspect that I'm finding it difficult to, come in terms with was the fact that the Nigerian government at the time alleged that the American government is blocking Nigeria from procuring arms, to fight the war against Boko Haram. And then American government responded to say that there was no such thing. And I want to, even before that response from the American government, I was almost like saying, immediately after the abduction of the Chibok girls, almost all the countries in the world came and said, look, we will support you, we will do everything to help you rescue these girls. And you don't rescue, abducted persons under a military or a war situation with empty hands. It takes a whole lot of arms and ammunition and expertise also to carry out such operations. So I was wondering what was the reason behind, what the Nigerian government was alleging. And, because if of a fact that American government and maybe some other world powers, we are blocking Nigeria from acquiring arms, then you can say, okay, the only option left is to go to the black market. And then what that means also, you have to engage a consultant, which I think is what they claim to have done with the Israeli. That is part of the process. So, but it's becoming much more complex, to understand. But I still do not want to subscribe to, you know, what some people are saying that is money laundering and all of that. You know, don't forget that even when you are outside the pitch, you seem to see the opportunities and the loopholes more than those right inside the pitch. And I think that's what happens when people look at leaders. I want to believe that there must have been some mistakes, and no leader can anywhere in the world can say he doesn't make mistake. So it's possible that somebody somewhere has advised Jonathan, President Jonathan, wrongly, and he approved certain things without considering the weight of the overall implications, and that is exactly what has happened.
But sorry to interject, do you think it would not be necessary for the president to make a statement about this? If this was anywhere else in the world, do you think the president of that country would not come out and say something about this kind of issue?
Yeah, you and I understand that in issues of leadership, not just governance, there are times a leader must have to think before he speak. You don't just react, because you have to study the situations. I guess that is what he's doing. He's listening to the various reactions and comments and what have you. So I see that as strategic. He obviously would have understood that they have committed a blunder, but we won't crucify him for committing such a blunder, considering the circumstances that we have found ourselves. So if the whole effort is to procure genuinely, whether through black market or through transparent processes, to procure arms in order to prosecute this war. Because as we speak right now, a good number of us, particularly in this side of the country, do not seem to understand the fact that Nigeria is actually fighting a war. A section of this country. In fact, even though the media seems not to have, taken a full a blown position on the matter. A section of this country has declared war against the rest of us. And, that is a major diversion. The government, the sitting government, is now focusing on how to recover the territories that are, being taken over by this set of people. And that is, there is no government anywhere in the world, the world, that will be effective in, carrying out other assignments that you have to do when you face a war situation like this. So, and in a situation like this, people are bound to make mistakes. So that is why I'm not too quick, to subscribe to, allegations of money laundering and what have you.
Okay, let's take this issue of the American side to it. The American ambassador to Nigeria, Ambassador Entwistle, was quoted in the newspapers recently as having alluded to the fact that there is some concern about human rights in Nigeria, especially by our military men. Do you think that there is an issue there?
Yeah, the Leahy, I think it's the Leahy Amendment now, so within the United States government actually has a proviso there that they don't support countries or armies, as it were, that have issues of human rights violations with weaponry. And that's okay. Coming back home, you discover that the scenario, the situation we have there is such that one way or the other, human rights violations are bound to take place. And the concerns the Americans have put on the table is okay based on their policies. From our end here, efforts are being made to address these human rights violations. Now, the thing is, once a human rights violation has been done, it cannot be undone. You can only do things going forward to see to it that such things don't reoccur. Yeah. Now, how proactively, how quickly things have been done to put aside that concern.
But do we even have a sizable number of these occurring in Nigeria? Do you think it happens frequently enough for us to say? Not as
frequently as it is made to look, but you see, you have to understand something. One human rights violation is louder than so many other non-violations. Once it happens, it stands out like a sore thumb. Now, what happens is how swiftly it is managed. What you put in place to